yourself, who
Sure.
you are? What does your day-to-day look like?
Okay. I'm a DevOps consultant for a company based in Finland called Efficode. We're trying to grow around all of Europe and take over the world. My day-to-day...
Take over the world.
Of course. Of course. Who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
So, my day-to-day is just helping customers, analyzing kind of where they are in their cloud transformation, DevOps, automation, whatever they want to call it, journey.
Yeah.
And then what tools match them to move them to the next step.
Yeah. So we are here at an open source conference, State of OpenCon. You mentioned several times DevOps. Could you just quickly give your definition of what DevOps is for everybody who's watching and who might be more familiar with different open source projects, but might not be too familiar with the DevOps space?
So I always joke that if you ask 100 DevOps engineers what's DevOps, you'll get at least 100 answers, probably more.
Yeah.
So, but it's kind of, to me, it's basically an umbrella term, which is just, we want to automate everything between I have an idea, put it on the whiteboard and make something, and it's running in production.
Yeah.
Everything there should be automated, it should be clean, it should be repeatable, it should be maintainable, it should be visible and exposed, and anybody should be able to go and see what's the status of this. And all the tools to make that happen are encompassed in my definition of DevOps.
Amazing. So how do open source tools feed into that vision in your job?
So a lot of companies say, hey, that's fantastic. We have zero budget. What can we do?
Yeah.
And so by using open source, we're able to say, here's some tools which you can use. You can use Argo CD for deploying your stuff into Kubernetes. You can use Kubernetes, which is open source. You can use this, you can use that, and kind of here's a bunch of tools you can use which are open source and which are free.
Totally.
And when you get to the point that you're using these in production and you realize, hey, we need some commercial agreements for support, you can find that. But it's not part of a license you have to buy up front. You get the support when you need it. So that way you get the benefit of I can use everything immediately.
Yeah.
And then you pay for it when you get value from it.
Yeah. So you mentioned within that a few times that open source provides the alternative to paying for enterprise software. What are some ways that companies can still give back to open source projects without paying?
The best way is to contribute back. Of course, if you're a development company and you're writing software, you can actually write code and commit it back to the open source project. Or you can just commit to the documentation and say, hey, I tried to follow this README and I didn't get things running. Here's what I had to do differently. I don't understand this. Is there a better way to describe this that I haven't found? Even asking questions in an open source repository kind of helps the open source community understand how to build things better. Yeah,
totally. Do you consider yourself more as a user or as a contributor in that scenario? Or does it vary depending on what you're working on?
It varies quite a lot. I'm more of a user, but I try to contribute, and I'm trying to find a way to get my employer to let me contribute more officially.
Yeah. And last question, if you could change one thing about open source, any area within open source, what would it be in a everything is possible kind of world?
In an everything is possible kind of world, companies who use open source would openly and clearly contribute back more, and their contribution back would closer match the value they get from it.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for answering my questions.
Thank you.